The Right Honourable Lord Justice Leveson wrote a letter to the then Prime Minister David Cameron, and it was a covering letter for his report, which was the result of the Leveson inquiry. And this was in 4 parts, and each part has about 445 pages. I know, because I've been spending the last 2 or 3 days looking at it in detail. And it makes fascinating reading. And what prompted that self-punishment was the stupid video that I posted a few nights ago about the Harry court case. I took it down because it was inaccurate. I first started getting news about Harry's court case at 8 p.m. Australian time, and I started recording that about 9 p.m. and I put it up that night. And it was stupid because new information came out beyond the point where I recorded that video. And so it made my video inaccurate. So I took it down. I will not be doing that again. I will not be doing breaking news on a major case again because it's not what I'm good at. What I'm good at is finding out the why. What I'm good at is looking behind the scenes and reading things thoroughly and then presenting them in an easy to understand way to an audience. That's what I'm good at. So that's what I will stick to. So my self-punishment, like I said, was to go back and have a look at the Leveson inquiry and have a look at the Leveson report. And it has been fascinating because there's certain aspects of my video that I made about the court case that I don't walk back, but I didn't explain well enough because I was always planning to sort of extend it into this. I explained about Harry's feelings when he was a young adult and a teenager. And I didn't do it because court cases are based on feelings or that should somehow influence the court. I always like to find out someone's why. I always like to find out the why because it informs me how seriously I should take what they say or how what they say may be coloured by their experience. It really does help you uncover that recollections may vary aspect of most people's lives. I'm sure my interpretation of something is completely different to someone else's interpretation of something because my life experience has been different. That's how opinions are variable and luckily facts are provable. So with that apology, and it won't happen again, I want to give you some really interesting information now. Now there's something about Harry's court case that is interesting to me. All the focus has been on Harry, and Harry bringing the claims against all these newspaper groups. But there are over 100 claimants to the MGN case, and a few, I think about 7 witnesses were decided to be called as a focus for the case to prove the claims. Okay. And the chances of them being able to prove after so long after the fact, too late to litigate, as MGN keeps telling us, and so does, Murdoch's newspaper group keeps telling us. And they're probably right. It's extremely difficult to prove. But what I sort of feel annoyed by is that people that have vested interests in the outcome and people who have vested interests in us not looking too closely are the very ones reporting on the court case. Also, people on GB News, like Dan Woolton, he was showbiz reporter for News of the World since 2007. Now, he has been found to have no nefarious actions during that time. He's been found to have no knowledge of anything undue or criminal during that time. It's quite startling. I mean, I think they must have had the showbiz desk maybe in a different building. Maybe it was on a different side of London. I have no idea, but he's just was completely oblivious to anything that was going on from 2007, and that is reasonable because, like I said, he may have been in a different space. He may have been employed to be the showbiz editor as being the clean face of what was going on behind the scenes that was definitely proved to be criminal activity. So I'm not casting any aspersions. But it's interesting, it makes me wary where I have GB News telling me to look over here, look at how stupid Harry is, look at how ridiculous he is, look at how arrogant he is, look at all of his inconsistencies, look how mean he is, look how disloyal he is, look how hypocritical he is. Now, a lot of that I agree with because I've made videos on it. I've made videos on Harry's hypocrisy, his disloyalty, on the way he's attacked his family. I've made many videos highlighting discrepancies in his memoir and comparing them to other published works and exposing how they are inconsistent, and so how we should take them with a big grain of salt. I have been spending 3 months doing that. So I don't need to be told in the comments that I'm somehow defending Harry, because I've made it my work over the last 3 months to expose him, because I felt that he bullied his brother and I felt that his behaviour has been appalling and disloyal, and I think his behaviour has been unfair to his family and, by extension, to the people of the UK. So that is why I went to great lengths to illustrate some of these alarming inconsistencies. So I assumed that everyone would take that for granted, but a lot of people didn't. Maybe they hadn't seen my previous videos. But sometimes you have to be able to say something sympathetic or positive about a person, not because you're defending that person, but because you're informing yourself of that person's biases. You're informing yourself of where that person is coming from. So it makes sense. Intellectual curiosity makes sense because it enables you to see the bigger picture. So like I said, I was uncomfortable with some of the GB News stuff. I noticed this passionate defence of Burrell last night, which I thought was a bit hilarious, because Bowers written a book, The Rebel King, which pretty much makes you not finding Burrell to be particularly an admirable character. Let's put it that way. You wouldn't be rushing to his defence if you read Bowers' quite forensic expose of Burrell's actions and how that court case was supposedly dropped in a rather big hurry and why. So I suggest you read that before you become too much of a Burrell defender. But like I said, there's always many sides to many stories, and even Piers Morgan, who I have defended in a video, 2 videos now actually. It's interesting when you look back in the Leveson inquiry. So I'm going to share all of this with you today because there's an aspect of the Leveson inquiry that people don't know. So now we're going to get on to the really juicy bit. And this is the bit that I found astounding and that I think it is really worth making a YouTube video about. The Honourable Justice Leveson wrote to David Cameron, and at the end, near the end of his letter, he said about part 1 of the Leveson inquiry, "I do not consider that any further evidence would in any way affect the conclusions I have reached or the recommendations I have made." Now, people use that to say, oh, it's all done, so you don't need to drag it up again. It was all covered. It's fine. What are you carrying on about? Move on, move on. What they don't tell you is he said this. As for part 2, you will be aware that the first trials are now fixed for September 2013, and at the date of this letter, investigations are by no means complete. A large number of persons are presently on bail awaiting decisions as to prosecution. In the circumstances, I'm quite unable to say when it might be possible even to consider part 2, let alone to decide how much more needs to be known about the subject matter which will form its basis, so the basis of part 2. Now, when part 2 was dropped, that's why over 100 claimants are now wishing to take MGM to court, which is currently unfolding in front of you. And unfortunately, Harry was a star witness, which I didn't think helped their case at all. because he created the Sideshow Bob aspect. Look over here, look over here, look over here. Whenever anyone tells me to look over there, I look over here. And Sir Brian Leveson said, I have written to ministers, this is after it was dropped by the government of the day. I've written to ministers saying that the extent of wrongdoing at News UK has been far greater than the first inquiry was informed, and that there is a legitimate expectation of a full public examination. So this is what all this is about. That's what I'm saying. It predates Meghan. It's based on fact. People have real grievance, and there is a lot that hasn't been investigated. Now, part 2 of the Leveson inquiry was supposed to examine the links between the nefarious activity that went on for far too long with newspaper groups, the cover-up, and their links with the police. Part 2 was supposed to look at that, and it didn't go ahead. So when Harry made that confronting and quite stupid statement at the start of his, it didn't help him. It didn't help the case. When he suggested that newspaper groups were in bed with the government, he was referring to this. He was referring in a clumsy way to part 2 being dropped. The trouble is, it is not his place to make a political statement. It is not his place because he is part of the royal family. That's why it is so ridiculous that he became a part of this case, because it damaged the case. But where I am with Harry and all the other claimants is the fact that Matt Hancock, the Cultural Secretary, said at the time, this was the excuse the government gave for dropping part 2, was that over $50 million had already been spent on press investigations to date. And there'd been significant changes in policy, practices and everything. But the real reason, I can't believe he gave this reason. He said that the traditional print media was under threat by the expansion of the digital space, and it had affected their advertising revenue. And that what the focus needed to be on was regulating social media. Now, who do you think was out at the time to regulate social media, which is shutting down free speech that everyone has a go at me about in my comments? Traditional print media was represented by the government and protected because they were losing advertising revenue. Well, I'm sorry, but newspaper groups are a business, and it's up to them to work it out. It's not up to the government to be concerned about their loss of revenue. And it's also not about the government to go about trying to regulate social media to try and shut it down, because they're in direct competition with traditional print media. So if you're not concerned about that, then I don't know what you could be concerned about. And that is the basis of Harry's statement. So sometimes the heroes aren't the heroes, and the villains aren't the villains. And that's why you need to look more deeply into things and to see why people say the things they do, and why people want you to look over here, look over here, look at the villain, look at the villain, because they don't want you to look at what's really happening over here. Now, I'll finish up with Lord Justice Leveson's opinion and description of Piers Morgan. Now, like I said, I've done a few videos defending Piers Morgan, but when Harry had a go at him in court, it was from the basis of this. Again, I'm not defending Harry. I'm saying that a lot of the allegations and claims in this case are based on valid concepts. And my dislike of Harry's behaviour doesn't prevent me looking at them. Lord Justice Leveson described the former Daily Mirror editor Piers Morgan's assertion that he had no knowledge of alleged phone hacking as utterly unpersuasive. Let me say that again. Utterly unpersuasive. And Leveson also said in his very detailed report, and he is highly respected, no one has ever tried to assert that the Leveson inquiry was less than stellar on either side. No one has tried to assert that. Everyone is satisfied it was very well done and it was very thorough and it was very fair. Okay, so you can't just cherry pick the stuff that suits. So, Piers Morgan, utterly unpersuasive. Morgan was asked during his evidence to the Leveson inquiry about an interview he gave to Press Gazette in 2007 when he said that phone hacking was an investigative practice that everyone knows was going on at almost every paper in Fleet Street for years. Now, he dismissed that by saying, oh, that was just rumours I heard. I didn't have any direct knowledge. So he got out of it that way. Leveson found that unpersuasive. Leveson said, the evidence does not establish that Mr. Morgan authorised the hacking of voicemails, or that's good, or the journalists employed by Mirror Group were indulging in this practice. But what it does, however, clearly prove is that he was aware that it was taking place in the press as a whole and that he was sufficiently unembarrassed by what was criminal behaviour that he was prepared to joke about it. In my view, the evidence which the inquiry has received, viewed in the round, strongly suggests that phone hacking was a practice which was over the period from the late 1990s to the arrest of Mr. Goodman and Mr. McClare in 2006, was occurring within the industry on a more than localised basis. To speak only of rumours, as Piers Morgan did to try to get out of it, underplays the extent of the understanding and knowledge. That is what Justice Leveson said. It is published. You can get the report of the Government UK website. I even will put a link in the description below and you can read the whole thing yourself. So you can see that we are not getting a balanced view of the why or the how or the what of these court cases. They are focusing on Harry and they're hoping that that will make us all derisive and occupied and over there and not look at what's really going on and what the purpose of it is. So I hope you found that interesting. I hope it stimulates a lot of discussion down below. I'm just going to completely ignore any assertions that I'm defending Harry in any way because that's patently ridiculous if you look back at the past videos I've made. Now, going on from this, we're just going to go back to normal, fun sort of programming, but I think this mattered and I think that it needed to be looked at properly by somebody on YouTube. See you later. Bye.